Hi everyone. In our last video, we got a NestJS app saying hello world, but the real world API needs to store and manage data. In this video, we will connect our app to a real database using powerful Prisma ORM. So, what is Prisma? In simple terms, Prisma is a modern ORM. ORM means Object Relational Mapper. Think of it as a super part bridge between your TypeScript code and your database. So instead of writing for SQL queries, Prisma lets you interact with your database using a type-safe and intuitive TypeScript API. Support any kind of database, relational database or NoSQL database. So Prisma consists of three main parts. You have the Prisma schema, which is a single file where you define your database model and connection. After that, you have a Prisma client, which is an auto-generated type-safe database client for your NestJS. And finally, you have the Prisma Migrate, which is a powerful system for managing database schema changes. In short, Prisma makes working with database not just safer, but also a much more pleasant developer experience. Now, let's install Prisma in our project. First of all, we need to run these commands. npm install Prisma dev. Now we can install bcrypt. Bcrypt, we will use bcrypt to hash our password for the users. So start bcrypt. Finally, we have to install .env. .env will allow us to read, configure, setup from .env file. Now to initialize Prisma setup in our project, run the command npx prisma init. Right, as you can see, this command creates a new directory called Prisma. For the next step, it is recommended install .env as we have already done, and add import.env config in your Prisma config.ts file. That is what we will do. So copy this, open the file Prisma config.ts here, and add it. Great. As you can notice, in our .env file, there is a new variable, database URL. Now, coming back in the NestJS documentation, you can notice this. We have already done this, set up Prisma, run npx Prisma, and now we need to set up the database connection. So it will depend on your database manager. If you are using PostgreSQL, MySQL, or another SQL database manager, just follow the documentation. But if you are using MongoDB, there is another documentation for it. In my case, I'm using MySQL. So click here and check for MySQL documentation here. If you are using MySQL, you have to adjust the schema Prisma and .env file as follows. So in our schema Prisma file, we will set the provider as MySQL. So come in my source codes, open the file in Prisma directory, schema Prisma. So here the provider will be MySQL. Reduce it. Reduce it. Sorry. The provider is MySQL. Generator client must be Prisma client JS, not only Prisma client. So we have to update it here. And finally, we have to update our database URL in our .env file. Please comment this line, the output line, in order to avoid some errors while compiling our source code, because sometimes Prisma generates some errors about conflicting for the output directory. So comment it. Now we have to set the proper database URL. As you can see in the documentation, it is in the format MySQL, username, password, host, port, and database. So copy it, open your .env file, and paste it. Sorry. And then replace with the correct information. Root, password, the host. Our host here is localhost. The port 3306. And database. By database, we call it Crypto Class API. Now, open your Prisma directory and open schema.prisma file. Here, I have already set up the migrations. Don't worry, I will explain them. Here, we need to understand the structure we adopt for our role and permission. Take this for example. For a role as admin, we have permission about resource user and resource task. For resource user, we need action such as read, create, edit, and delete. Same things for resource task. That means what? That means that the user who has a role admin can create, read, and delete another user. And he can also create, edit, and delete any task. Then another user with role user or a user or another role as editor will have permission on resource user and resource task. For resource user, he can only read another user. And for task, he can only read and create. So in case you want to add another action, it is very simple. You can just only, for example, add it here. So the main advantage using role and permission is that you can dynamically update the permission of any role. You can create a new role, add permissions, and also update it directly. Here is model role. For role, we need an ID, which is type int, ID, which is default and to increment. Role also have name, which is of type string, and then it is not unique, sorry. Fascia of length 255. Why I write this? I write this because I'm using MySQL. If you're using PostgreSQL or MongoDB, you don't need to add this attribute. After that, we have created at, which is of type datetime and default now. Using decorator map and created at will inform Prisma to use snake case in our database management system. Now, after that, we have to implement directly the relationship in our model. One role has many permissions, and one role also have many users. Let's check it here. As you can see here, for one role, we have one or many permissions, and for one role, we have one or many users. So to translate it in NestJS, we will use array. So we need to add arrays in our model. That's why we set permission array and user array. to inform Prisma that the relationship here is of a type 1 to many. Sorry, relationship nodes. Another model is permission. In permission, we need resource and action. Resource here represents any other model we will use in our app. So for resource, we use some enumeration. And here are enumeration for our resource. User, task, picture, we will use it later on. For the moment, we can remove it. And for action, we have create, show, read, update, and delete. So for any resource, for example, task, for any task, we can create it, show it, read all tasks, update any task, or delete any task. If we add another model, for example, model file, we can add it as resource here. Okay. After resource, we have actions. Action is a string array. We can use it like this, but in MySQL and another relation database management system, we have an error. That's why we need to use a JSON and then tell Prisma that the default value is an empty array. But if we are using another database management system such as MongoDB, you can easily use it by putting a way of action. After that, we have created art, updated art, and roles, because a permission can be linked to many roles as we implement it in our class diagram here. One permission can be linked to one or more roles. In user, we have ID, role, because a user has only one role. This is a relation of type, belongs to. So to define a relationship of type belongs to, we need to write it in 2 lines. The first line is the model concern, so role model, and we tell the field related. It is role ID, reference ID. So in our user model, we need role ID, which is referenced ID field in the role model here. After that, we need name, email, which is unique, password, created ad, updated ad, and task. The user can have many tasks. That's why we need the task array. So it is a relation of type 1 to many. One user can have 0 or many tasks. The final model is task. The task belongs to only one user, so belongs to relationship. One task belongs to only one user, as is set up in our class diagram here. We don't need this, sorry. It is an error, not default for a moment. Okay. For a task, we need status, which is of type status. Okay. Which is an enum. Now we need to format our Prisma model. So in terminal, clear run command nps Prisma format. So it will well formatted our file. run it. We need to run our migration. It is nps prisma migrate and then name init. Run the following command and see. Great. Now we have our migration created. As we use dev in our command, we can see the migration file created. So go in Prisma folder, open migration folder, open the folder, and you will see a file called migration.sql. Open it and we will see the corresponding MySQL queries run by Prisma. So as you can see, creatable role, creative permission, creative user, creative task, and also with relationship. And if you open your database, you will see that all those tables are created. But as you can see, our database is created with different migration task user. And if you open task, you can see it here, structure created at is in snake case, not camel case. Status is a type enum. Congratulations, we have successfully connected our project with the database using Prisma ORM with MySQL.